Okay, and welcome to the wrap-up video for week 3. Although week 3 finished last week, we did give you an extra week to finish off because it was Easter, and Easter ended up in the middle of it. The other two are on leave. Normally we do this as a three-parter. So Simon will be producing the intro to week 4 video when he's back from leave on Monday. As you can see, I'm not in my normal place. I'm actually in Kathmandu at the moment. You can just about make out the Himalayas behind me. But I couldn't get this day off on leave because it was down to me to finish off wrapping up week 3. So today's been a work day, although I'm in the hotel in the Hyatt in Kathmandu, which is the great thing about working over the internet and teaching over the internet. You can do it from anywhere. So just to kind of give some feedback on how things went. I saw there were, I think all of the groups, most of the groups had uploaded something into the discussion forum. And I'd really recommend you to have a look at each other's stuff because there's some really interesting things in there about what students need to support them with getting online in the first place. Some of the really interesting tips that I think came out of there for me were that students be really clear about the minimum requirement for online collaboration for posting and those sorts of things. So how many posts? I think some of this might have come from us being not entirely clear what our minimum requirement is for you to post. So we could make that clearer. And the other thing is one of the somebody mentioned social interaction, that the social interaction that they'd had within their groups has made them feel far more comfortable with discussing things online with the other members of their groups because they've had these synchronous chats than the rest of the group. And I think that's an interesting comparison that I think I'll look forward at in future things, is not just do you feel comfortable or not, but do you feel comfortable within your own separate circle compared to the wider group. And I think we'd probably see on the whole that people do, and maybe you could reflect on that and see whether or not that's something that you kind of jibes with your experience. Another one was getting students over the initial barrier to interaction. And I think I'm not sure, there's not a lot of activity in the discussion groups. That's mainly, I suspect, because we've just had the Easter break, which has unfortunately fallen right in the middle of what we're doing. So that's probably impeded people's interaction. And then what we'll probably need to do is have some big push to get everybody into it again once Easter's over. So I think perhaps a lot of interaction within the groups, but not a lot generally across discussion boards. So we may look for ways to compensate for that, and any tips or suggestions you've got for what we can do there will also be really interesting. Also, I think one of the things that has been interesting is that because everybody's been spread out and going off to different places over the period where the collaboration was happening, the people have kind of tailored the tasks, individual tasks, and the overall goals to the time that's available. And I think that's really the sensible way of doing it. It's way better to, we only asked for a short piece anyway. Some people have done quite a lot of work. But overall, I think it seems like people have said, well, we can only do this much, we'll achieve that, and that's been fine. That's really good. As I said last time when we introduced this week, the key thing is that you can reflect on your experience from this, and then if you are doing the final assignment, then you can submit stuff. Then that's all material that is going to be useful for you when you do your final assignment. So another thing we've learned is to keep the forum going, we have people allocated to different days. So of the 3 of us, we've each chosen a day that it's our day to respond to forum posts. Today's my day. And I think that's going to prove key, because I think one of the worst things you can do with it if you're an e-moderator is to have people posting stuff and then nobody responds to it. It's very demoralizing. And I think if you read Julie Salmon's book on e-moderating, that's got some really interesting tips in there about responding. Another thing is weaving, so you take interesting things from different discussions and present them to other students, which is what we can do in these wrap-ups, which I've just done, and also adding to materials to say, well, there's also this and that kind of thing. Another thing that one of the discussions mentioned was this idea that synchronous is far better for obviously for discussing things, but one of the problems with asynchronous discussion is that if one of your colleagues says something and you need clarification, and you ask that in an email, then that takes some time to respond to the clarification. And then maybe if they've misunderstood what you need them to tell you, then that's another day or so before that response happens. And I think this really sort of exemplifies this difference between the idea of convergence, which is taking separate ideas and bringing them together, which requires clarification, agreement, and consensus building, and the idea of conveyance, which is just about transmitting information from one place to another. And asynchronous works brilliantly for conveyance, but you really need synchronous for that convergence of ideas. And I think that's possibly something that you've experienced in what you've been doing over the last couple of weeks. And I think, therefore, whenever we're looking at an online course, an element of synchronous communication is essential if we want this kind of collaboration to continue effectively. So that's the end of week 3. As I said, on Monday, Simon will produce the other half of this video, which is on week 4, which is supporting learning, and then I'll be back leading on week 5, which is about assessing learning. Now, on the 11th of April, we've got a guest lecturer who will be running a webinar on peer assessment online and other forms of assessment, and that starts at 12 o'clock BST. So it would be really good if you could make that, because I'm sure he'll have plenty to tell us about that aspect of online learning. Okay, well, thanks a lot. So bye from Kathmandu, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Okay, bye.